Welcome back to another episode of the Dimond Download. I'm here in the woods, hanging out with some bears. Chase is in California, no way in Diamond. Chase, we got some cool topics today. How are you doing, bro?
I'm good. I was telling you, I'm a little bit jet lagged. Just got back from a week and a half in Spain and a little jet lagged. But aside from that, I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah. Do you remember letting two idiots run your podcast while you were gone?
Yeah. Yeah. What did you guys even talk about? I didn't even get to watch the whole thing. I just skimmed through it. What did you
You
guys
didn't
talk
even
about?
watch it? Bro,
No.
we talked about you should watch it. It was a good one. I don't remember
All
what
right,
we
I'll watch
talked
it
about.
after.
It was pretty safe. I don't think we said anything too crazy.
All right, I'm gonna watch it after
Have
this.
you
Are
gotten
you
any,
doing?
have you gotten any emails from any sponsors saying we don't want to work with you anymore?
I need to check. I got a backlog of emails I got to go through. Hopefully not.
All right, then as long as you got none of those, then I think we did a good job. I'm good, man. I just decided yesterday morning that I was just gonna go up north and get some nature for a little bit before I go back to Miami. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm looking out at the lake and yeah, man, I'm good.
Sick,
You want to
dude.
jump
Well, I'm
in?
stoked to be back and I'm excited to dive into this.
Yeah, I missed you, bro. All right, let's do it. So the first topic we got is to nomad or not to nomad. So this was slightly inspired by the fact that like I'm up here now, and last week you were in Barcelona. I mean, there's like for the last like 5 years, it feels like there's been sort of a trend of people who make money the way that we make money. Like we have everything remote and they choose to go to, a random country and just kind of bounce around. Like, do you know anyone who kind of does that lifestyle? What do you think of it? Have you ever done it? Would you ever do it? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Last week in Barcelona, I barely worked. I was like struggling to catch up with the time change. I was in a wedding, so I was super busy. I went with my wife and we wanted to explore. So right now in the stage I'm at, when I go on vacation, I want a vacation. I don't want to work. I want to chill. I just want to relax. In the past, though, like I loved the idea and did a little bit of the, hey, let's go rent a place for a week or two, kind of work and whatnot. So I think it's really cool if you're single and if you're in a time zone that is conducive to work. Being 9 hours ahead in Spain was really, really hard. It was hard to even like communicate with like loved ones about simple things. So I think remote work is really cool. In theory, I would like to do it. I just think in reality, with where I'm at right now, when I'm going to vacation, kind of computers off. Oh. What about you? I think it's a little bit easier for you right now, and you're kind of doing it between Canada and Miami and the woods. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I like you said, like it sounds cool, and then you actually try it, and sometimes it's not as cool as you think. Like so like for the beginning of last year, like January 2022, when I just started my agency, I was like trying to nomad around a little bit because in Canada, like COVID was really bad. So I was like, I gotta get out of here. So I went to Mexico for a little bit. I did 3 weeks there. And like, dude, it's just like there's endless problems. Like I was in an Airbnb. It can be good, but like the Wi-Fi wasn't great. And like we would go down to a coffee shop, and then people are always bugging you. And like you want to work, but also like the beach is right there. And so it's like, well, maybe like I'll just like take a couple hours off and then you end up going to the beach. People think you can like work from the beach. You cannot do that. Like you can't like just sit there and like get a bunch of sand in your laptop. Like it sucks. So I don't know. I think like it definitely depends on the people you're with too. Like the people I was with when I was in Mexico, like they just wanted to party. And like I did not. Like I wanted to make money. I wanted to start my business. And so yeah, it depends on a lot of different things. I've never really tried it to the full extent. I think the one thing that it can be good for, like you and I feel like we both prioritize business. Like that's like our thing. That's at
Yeah,
least that's what like I love doing it.
yeah,
Some people like don't really care about money that much. They figure out a way to make like 5 to 8 grand a month online, and then they go to Thailand and they're like a billionaire in Thailand. Or like they go to Cuba, not Cuba, Colombia or Brazil or Paraguay, and they're just like super rich there, even though like at home they wouldn't do very well. So I think that's one of the reasons why they do it. But like, I don't know. I'm curious what people in your comments think. I wonder if like we got some nomads in the house. I'm personally not a fan.
yeah. A couple of thoughts. Like for me, I love having my at-home setup. I love having the monitor. I love having the keyboard. I love having the computer. I love having the mic and the video. And you just can't travel with all that, right? Like I'm not going to travel with my big screen, my mic, all these different types of things. So I think having like the workspace at home is super nice. And then two, I think like I'd rather do like a work retreat where like we're not working, but we're with work people just to ideate and be creative and think. Like I could do a week in the cabins or a week somewhere with a few business partners where it's kind of social, kind of working, and it's less being behind a computer. And it's more like, why don't we walk to lunch and we'll talk at lunch and we'll talk on the walk? Or why don't we go do a workout together and we're all kind of pushing each other? Or why don't we go grab coffee, whatever it is? So I like the idea more of being like, quote unquote, a nomad and doing like remote work retreats with the people you want to vibe with. Great way to create some content, just get outside the box, get outside the norm, but actually like working where I have to take calls and send emails and be productive. I think it's really hard to do that remote, at least for me.
Yeah, I agree. But it is really cool because like you have remote founders. Like, I mean, I know you're down the road from Shaq,
Yeah.
but like we also kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's really cool to be like in the trenches. Like me and Ben, like because like we think we're like, I'm his favorite client. So like we're thinking about Copy MBA all the time. Like we'll go to Jupiter and just like post in Jupiter for like 3-4 days and just like wake up, do work. Like he'll work a little bit on some other stuff, but like most of the time we're just talking about ideas for Copy MBA. I'm working on Copy MBA, and then we'll go out at night and like while we're drunk, we're talking about Copy MBA, and then we wake up and it's the same thing over again. So it's like that's cool. But like yeah, I mean, for remote teams, I think it makes sense like to meet up every once in a while, but like to just like go and just be in another time zone, like being in Thailand like 12 hours ahead, like I would not want to do that. So anyway,
I'm with you.
all right, man. So next topic I had here, what makes you buy stuff? So like, I think a lot about this. This is something I've been thinking about since I like started copywriting. Like I always had this curiosity for like, anytime I made a purchase, I would always think about like why that was. And like, I'm curious on your take with this. Like maybe there's something recent that you bought that was a fairly big purchase and um, you like, you know why you bought it, or you can sort of like reverse engineer it. Maybe why you bought it, like why did you buy it, when you bought it, and who you bought it from, and like all that stuff. Like, you ever think about that?
Yeah, sometimes I think more about it typically like in hindsight than in like the active doing it.
Yeah.
But lately, like on the flight to Spain, I upgraded my Taquilio, or like the guys from Tweet Hunter, they have this like, LinkedIn tool. They sent an email about some sale on their like top plan, and I was on the lowest plan, whatever. And just the fact that like they wrote such a good sales email, I like the people, and I figured it might be able to actually help either save time or make money. Dude, it was an easy purchase. I was paying like $30 a month, and now I'm paying like $100 a month. So like, 3x the price of it for, I think it's going to be more value. So for me, I'm in the mindset right now of anything that I'm using that I can extract more value from in the terms of saving time or making money or both. I don't even think about it. I just press buy. And then, every quarter I just buy from my buddy that owns Bill. I just buy a couple new items of his to A, upgrade my wardrobe, and B, support him, and C, I don't know, just give him feedback and kind of on the support side. So for me, I'm kind of like, I have like these repeat buys where every quarter I buy a couple items of clothes and I don't shop or think outside of it. And then once in a while I buy for the wife. And normally it's because she has a list of things that she wants. And I have to go down the list for holidays or birthdays or anniversaries and just buy it. Or we're somewhere with my daughter and she wants it. I'm like, sure, whatever, let's buy it. So most of it right now is like outside influences, right? Like, what does my wife want? What does my daughter want? What does my mom want? What do they want? And it's just like, sure, whatever. If it's reasonable, let's get it. Like my wife just bought like really expensive Taylor Swift tickets for like a belated birthday present for herself. I'm like, all right, cool, whatever.
Dude, that's so interesting. Like, okay, so I'm sure you're not alone. I'm sure there's a bunch of dudes who are in your tax bracket who are influenced by like people around them. Like, if you're doing like a fairly expensive B2B service, like, should you be like cold emailing like the dude's wife? Is that like an idea that nobody's tried yet? Like everyone's thinking about like, okay, well, like let's just create a female LinkedIn profile so that I can like cold DM him and like I'll get noticed. But has anyone thought about cold emailing the wife of a high net worth individual?
I never have, no. I didn't even think about that. I was saying that's no, I haven't.
Something to think about. I think like that is interesting. You said a bunch of cool stuff there. This is such a gem of a question because I got so much out of you. I think like you also said that like you are very, very like susceptible to buying stuff that you've already bought. So if you're going to upgrade a plan, like it's kind of like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of this stuff is like kind of universal. I mean, obviously, like the easiest person to sell to is someone who's already bought from you. Like that's
Yep.
a sort of platitude. Everyone kind of knows that, but I don't think people really take it seriously until they hear it from someone like you.
Yeah, dude.
Um,
On that note, like coincidentally, I was literally doing research before this and I actually made a post. Um, there was this statistic, and I found this on ChatGPT, but that if you increase your customer retention rates by just 5%, you can actually increase your profits by 25 to 95%. So just increasing customer retention rates by 5%, they were saying that you could actually increase your profits because you've already paid to acquire these people, and depending on the purchase and what they buy, you could be adding 25 to 95% of your margin. So yeah, kind of interesting that we talk about that. I didn't even think about that till right now.
that makes sense. Like I think like a lot of like let's say like SaaS companies will be unprofitable for like the first like 3-4 months of
Yeah.
having a customer because they spend so much to acquire them. And another month after that, like it's just it feeds the wheel, especially like at scale. That makes sense. All right. So yeah, that does make sense.
Gravy. Yeah. What about you? Why do you buy, or what influencers are buying, and what have you bought recently that you're kind of aware of?
The one thing that I had on my mind when I wrote down that question, I think, is just like, and I actually wrote an Alex in my inbox about this a while ago, but like the Drake effect, when it's like the reason we love Drake so much, the reason why he's as famous as he is because he just never misses. And like I think for me, because I'm turning into a premium customer, right? Like I'm starting to buy more expensive stuff. I'm starting to sort of demand. I'm getting a little bit Karen-y about like how good my service like a service is when I'm the customer. And so like last night, long story short, I was in this other Airbnb and I had to check out and go to a Best Western just to like grab a spot for the night. And there were like a bunch of other hotels around with names that I'd never heard of. And Best Western is not a great hotel. I'm sure some of the other ones were better, but I just know that Best Western is like consistent. Like they're not going to be awful, right? There's not going to be cockroaches or anything. Like they have a big name. They've never done me wrong. And so I just think like my thing is like if you can make a good first impression and then just not mess it up, like even providing like an average service, like an okay service, like a 4 out of 10, like I'm more likely to go to the 4 out of 10 that I know is going to be a 4 out of 10 than go to what looks like a 9 out of 10 but could end up being a 1 out of 10 because I just don't
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah. Dude, that's interesting. I actually was booking a hotel last night. By the way, I'm thinking about all these things now. I was booking a hotel last night for August for one of my buddy's weddings. It's like 30 minutes away from me, but we're making like a weekend trip out of it. And we were looking at like 4 or 5 hotels, and we were factoring in like how far is it from the venue in terms of miles and minutes? Like what is around the place in terms of like amenities and kind of things to do. And like, yeah, just which one do we vibe with? And there were like 4 options. There was like, you know, one that was like 500 a night, and there was one that was 1,000 a night, and there was ones in between. And we ended up going with the hotel that was probably about a 4.5 star versus like the 5 star ones. And we ended up going with like the best, if not one of the better rooms at like the 4.5 star versus like a lowest room at like the 5 star hotel. And like with there, like I have to pull it up, but like there was a lot of things that got my wife. It was like we served cookies all day. We serve wine at 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. every night. We let you rent bikes. So they basically had on theirs way more value, and kind of they had way more things that they were stacking in terms of like the benefits. They had curated things, and they were more of like it seemed more homey than some of these other kind of places that had these larger names. All of them seemed like very reputable. But it was interesting. Like last night, we picked this hotel, my wife did, because of all of these things that just made it feel like home. And we ended up getting the better room than we ended up doing. So it was kind of interesting now I'm thinking about it. But again, influenced by my wife looking at like the value that these people were stacking with things like wine and cookies, which really aren't that expensive, but like, I don't know, just warm your heart, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this, but like we might have talked about this before too, but like the Airbnb CEO, I don't remember his name, but like the 12-star experience. Do you remember that? I think we
Yeah.
talked about that. It's like he gets all of his employees in a room. This is my first million thing. He goes, what's a 1-star experience? What's a 5-star experience? And people like they give you a 5-star experience, but it's really just like, I don't know, it's still like a 7 out of 10. And then they just keep, all right, what's a 6-star experience? And like as you keep going up, they demand more. So it's like instead of just like everything's clean and everything's easy to access, like that's a 5-star experience, like a 12-star experience is like going way above and beyond. that you wouldn't even think of it, right? But only until you force yourself to think of like, what could we do to be even better than 5 stars? Then like you get a bunch of value there. I think we're off topic, but you want to fire off this last one?
Yeah, let's do it.
This is a segment for you, bro. I don't know anything about this. This is something called SaaS headaches. I think we alluded a couple weeks ago that you were going to talk about your experience with email up. You don't have to go too deep into it, but I'm seeing a lot of like 16-year-olds, like my audience, saying like, "Hey, Cardinal, like, what do you think of SaaS? Like, should I build a SaaS?" And every time they ask, I'm like, "Listen, like, dude, I don't even think I'm smart enough to build a SaaS. So like, I don't know what you're gonna do, like with your parents' credit cards. So like, tell me about like, first of all, why you thought it was a good idea to build a SaaS in the first place, what ended up happening in the meantime, and like what you would have done differently, if at all."
Yeah, I ended up building, I guess, two SaaS. They were related. One was called Email Up. Um, and I started that, dude, at this point now, it's probably like closer to 2 years ago that we had the idea and thought of it. Just like, you have Canva and you have Figma and you have all these platforms, and it didn't feel like anything was specifically built for like creating emails, especially for like non-designers and beginners. So, and Klaviyo's editor sucks. Granted, it's gone through a bunch of revisions, it still sucks. Most of the editors suck, right? No one had like really nice, clean templates. So wanted to build this platform that predominantly served Klaviyo, but eventually was going to be universal. And I spent 12 months on it, spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think it was like 150, 200K on it. So I spent like a year and a half on it, spent, low six figures on it. And yeah, it never worked. Like the tool never was as good as it's supposed to be. We could never actually get it to work like it was supposed to. So I kind of took my eye off the ball, where I had this team, and nothing against them. They're nice people, but they were supposed to really own like the product and the tech. And I was just going to wait until I was ready. And timelines were always missed, and features were always missing, and things were always just so subpar that by the time it actually quote unquote was done, it still wasn't that great. And I just kind of was ashamed of it. So I literally promoted it like one time. A couple of people complained that it wasn't there. I refunded everyone, and then I kind of gave up on it. And then we pivoted where we made a platform that was very, very easy to use. But at that point, like, it was 2 years ago that I had spent on it. I kind of just mentally got over it. I was so frustrated with it. I wasn't happy with it. So SaaS is hard. I mean, I wanted to do it because I just saw all the SaaS companies I was promoting were just crushing it. And every time I promoted them, they were adding, thousands of dollars of MRR. And over the course of time, they're adding tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of dollars to their ARR. So I'm just like, oh, dude, if they're doing it, I can do it. Like, how hard could this be? And it was actually really, really hard. Granted, I picked one of the hardest things to build. Trying to make your email codes render across all platforms and all devices and all ESPs was really hard. So in hindsight, I probably would have picked an easier thing to go after. I don't know what it would be. Probably would have been a lot more involved, and probably done a better job, like looking at contracts, allocating budget, bringing in kind of like a project manager. So I just screwed up from A through Z on this.
Interesting. So what would you have done differently? Like starting from zero, what would you have done differently to make it work?
Well, I think like there's a couple of things. I think one is like, now my mindset is like, do you buy versus build, right? I think it's a lot easier and better to just buy something if you can. I would probably just buy something in the email space versus having to like go from idea to product to MVP to scale. It's just not the way that my brain thinks. So I think like, if I was to do it differently, I would have tried to buy something that already existed and just made it better versus trying to start something from scratch. If I was to go from scratch again, I would have just had to been way more involved, not just kept like letting the bill rack up and just kind of like, oh, it's going to happen eventually. Like I think I was just too trusting and too nice about it, where I should have been a lot more like, why am I paying you guys a bunch more money again? It still doesn't work like it's supposed to. So I think I was just too lenient and not strict enough. I think that kind of screwed me over as being a nice guy.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense. I think like, dude, like thinking about it, like if you owned retention.com, that would make so much sense. But like that's just such a good idea. It's such a good
Yeah.
product that like I think everyone wishes they own retention.com. We talk about them all the time. Shout out Adam. Um, but yeah, dude, I mean, like he's also been through the ringer too. So like I mean, he probably hates SaaS more than you do, except like he actually has a successful one. So
Yeah.
I mean, dude, it's such a tough business, like because there's so many moving parts. And like, yes, like if you do everything right, like the prize is phenomenal, right? Like
Yeah.
you can make billions. But like I think you can do that doing something else. I think like if you do
Yeah.
end up wanting to be a billionaire, then you can do that maybe in a different vertical. Um, but yeah, man, that no, I probably won't touch anything SaaS related unless I have a bunch of money that I'm just willing to burn and I have an idea that I just know is so good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll get another chance, like because AI is going nuts right now. I'm sure like we'll think of some cool AI idea in the next couple of
Yeah.
years that we can.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is like there's a middle ground instead of like build versus buy. It's like, dude, find someone that like is doing it already, buy a percentage of it. Like just like the whole what Alex Hormozy is doing and some of these other guys are doing, they're buying like a percentage of the business in which they think they can add value. I think you have to find something that's like early enough that has the right team where they're gonna do, 90% of it, and you're gonna come in and just buy per percentage of it and just really be like a huge value add. So that's probably what I do differently in the future is like buy something entirely if the team is going to stay on, or just kind of buy a part of something and just help, add some fuel to the fire.
Mhm. Yeah, like lose the very. Like
Yeah,
that's a cool little
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Interesting. All right. Well, this is a good one, bro. I feel like people probably learned a lot. Like these are my favorite types of business podcasts where it's like it's two dudes just talking and like you can just get ideas from it. Like I think we dropped a couple of gems in there that people are gonna usually like they're probably gonna take it with them. So good stuff, man.
heck yeah. Appreciate you, brother.
I'm bed now.
Was that? Yeah, I'm gonna go to bed. I'm exhausted, but we made it. We did it.
It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but yeah. Good night, man. Good night, Jay. I'll see you in the morning, bro.
Enjoy your cabin, brother. Appreciate you. So Cardinal Mason on Twitter and TikTok, and then come chase Diamond no A. Cheers, guys.
Yeah.